and welcome to our 7th video in our series of videos chats. I'm Janet Gregory.
I'm Lisa Crispin.
In our last chat, our guest was Claudia Beldel, and we talked about mind mapping and how you could use it for exploring your requirements early to get shared understanding, along with many other things. Today, we'll change things up a bit, and we're going to talk about the definition of ready. Ready for the next step. Ready to bring it into your iteration or working on your story. If you're doing Kanban, is it in the ready column? Are we going to ready to start working on it?
Mm-hmm.
So we've been talking about holistic testing. So the last couple that we've been talking about was the planning, the understanding. And now this little blue arrow, we want to stop, maybe not stop, but pause to reflect. And this is where we would ask, are you ready? Are we ready? So I'm going to stop sharing now and we'll come back so Lisa and I can chat. So the definition of ready it's a check, I think, right? It's simple. It's not meant to be a quality gate. What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, I think that's a potential slippery slope to get it kind of back into that gated, throwing things over the wall kind of thing. It's more of to help the team be disciplined and be able to have a cadence, because we don't work on a story or a feature until we have that shared understanding and until other things are in place, potentially, depending on our context. So when we feel like we have the shared understanding and maybe some infrastructure items or other information about a story, then we can pull it in. If we're a Scrum team, we can pull it into our iteration, or any kind of team using iterations. If we're a Kanban team, now we can put it in our ready column, so we can pull from that ready column. So, we might use a practice like example mapping or mind mapping, so everybody understands the goal of the story, what's the purpose, what problem are we solving for our customers. And we're trying to work in small increments, deliver frequently to our customers. And so we want a really short cycle time from when we start working on the story to when it is out in production for our customers. And so I can't tell you how many times teams I've been on started a story and got blocked on it because there was information missing. We didn't have the design for the user interface. Some other team needed to do something first. There's just so many times, and it's just going to make your cycle time go crazy. And if that's one of your goals, is to deliver frequently and iteratively and incrementally, it gets in your way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, our definition of ready, I mainly have worked on web-based products with user interfaces. And so we really need those mock-ups and designs, or maybe if we're doing reports or monitoring dashboards, we need to have a design or an idea of what's going to be on there. If there's any service within our company or outside our organization involved, we need to know about that. Are we coordinating with them? How are we going to implement it technically? If we got, we don't want to have to spell out all the design or technical implementation up front, but do we have a good idea? So those are just examples of the kind of things. You might want to have high level acceptance criteria. How do we know when we're done with this story? Obviously, how will we know this is successful when it's in production? So it's not only for writing code, it's for monitoring, observability, all kinds of aspects of product quality.
I think it makes depending on the type of team you're in, what you're looking for. I know in many teams that I work with, I often see stories blocked, as you mentioned, right? It could be for lots of different reasons. One of the most prevalent is the dependencies you mentioned on other teams, third parties, but it might even be within their own team on another story or something, right? I know that what I see is that the programmers will start working on a story and then have to stop, put it aside, and start on something else because they're waiting for an answer for something even. And it splits their attention. Then when they go back to it, they have to try to remember where they were, what files they were using. And there's so much time wasted. And I think that's what you were talking about when you said that cycle time, right? So I think a definition of ready really needs to include no dependencies, or at least dependencies handled, right? So one way that I've seen work pretty well is, we have this dependency list, so let's stub it out or mock it out. And then we can finish, we can have another story to finish the implementation, or maybe just divide the story in half, right? To say, we can do this story up until here and it's done. And then when that dependency, whatever it might be, has been completed, then we can start the second story. Either way, a story doesn't get blocked and hold up the team. And I think that's what we really want to see.
Yeah, we've done exactly those kind of things. The team where I work now, our product is dependent on a lot of internal services as well as partners of our company. And we've had to do that exactly as you say, just sort of mock out the data. So, we're working on a feature where a partner is going to send information about the customer with some kind of reference ID. And well, how do we test if the partner's not ready yet? And so we have to write our own little thing to mock that out and give us a fake reference ID and some data behind the scenes, just so we can test. But it's important to think about that, to kind of think about that up front. And so, these scenarios you're describing, it's like, oh yes, I'm just living that all the time now. We're just about to start reworking a story that I think we abandoned about 3 months ago. It was sat in the block column for about a week, and then the product owner said, you know what, another team has to do something first.
Yeah. And those stories to me should not even get in.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, and until we started working on it and asking the product owner questions, the product owner said, oh, I forgot about that. So we know we have a problem with this. And of course, it kills our cycle time, which we're trying to shorten and improve, because the way we measure cycle time, once you start a story, even if you put it back in the backlog, it doesn't stop counting cycle time. So our product owner has agreed. We experimented with mind mapping, exactly as Claudia inspired me to do that. And you did too, of course. And we tried it out on an upcoming feature that the product owner thought was really simple. Well, you can imagine our mind map started to get pretty busy, and lots of things about other teams and other dependencies. And so he's agreed that going forward, we're going to experiment with having brainstorming meetings when we're first planning a feature. Like, we haven't tried to come into stories or anything yet. We're just got the feature idea, and let's brainstorm as a team and bring in some stakeholders, do a mind map collaboratively, and try to identify those things up front. So I'm really excited to see how that works out.
Yeah, I know. I've just been working with a team that's exactly what we did. We did this. They were going to bring this brand new feature, a really big one in. And I said, well, let's try this mind map, because they've been having some problems. And so we did this mind map, and it showed so many pieces that were not anywhere close to being brought in. And so they went, okay, back to the drawing board. But how much easier there than when you're in and you're starting to work on it and you're going, I can't go any further. We're stuck. Right. One of the other things I was thinking about when you were talking about, Lisa, when you were saying mocking stuff out and using data, test data, we have to make sure that everybody on the team understands what's going on, because when you get that real data, you have to retest that. You have to make sure it works. Yeah.
And this partner wasn't ready when we launched the product. We had other partners too, but this one particular partner was not ready. And when they tried it for real, it didn't work on their side. It was on their side. But we couldn't do the true cycle of testing that through there. So that's really tough.
And so it affects everything. If you're bringing stories in when they're not ready, it doesn't affect only you, but it affects your whole team. And it affects the other teams that may be working. And a lot of this comes back down to, do we have a good understanding of prioritization across the organization, right? Because if one team thinks something is more important, they're not going to deliver what they're supposed to at the time, right? It's all connected. It
And
is.
just having that simple checklist of definition of ready. And we may not even insist everything is checked off. Maybe there are some cases where not everything needs to be done, but just having that discipline of,
Yeah.
we need to, dot all these I's and cross all these T's to make sure we're ready. And it also kind of like, I was on a team years ago where constantly the product owner brought stories into the iteration. We were a Scrum team, and we'd start to work on the story and go, where's the design? Because he'd say, well, I'll have the mock-up to you. And it'd be the third day of the sprint, no mock-up.
Yes.
So we finally said, you know what? If you don't have these on the first day of the sprint, we're not taking this story. And we're just going to drop it. And we're going to work on something else that we want to work on. Maybe addressing technical debt or whatever.
Yep.
And so there was one iteration where pretty much none of the stories were ready. And we just held firm. You need a supportive management to do this.
Yes,
but we
you
held
do.
firm and said, you know what? We're just going to manage technical debt this sprint. We've got a lot to do. It's 2 weeks, and it's only 2 weeks. You have to wait to get all your ducks in a row. And that was the last time that ever happened. After that,
Yep.
they always had everything ready. So
Yep.
teams have to be able to push back.
Yes.
And when it's not being
and
delivered.
I think having that definition of ready really helps that, because
Yeah, it makes it visible.
it makes it visible, and you can have a very simple definition of ready.
Mhm.
I know one of the ones that I like to start teams off with is no dependencies, or dependencies mitigated or handled.
Mhm.
Acceptance tests or acceptance criteria, whichever term you use.
Mhm.
There, it's in. And maybe small enough, whatever small enough means to you.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a very simple definition of ready.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
what other kind of checklists have you used?
Yeah, it ends up kind of being a working agreement.
In a way.
Sometimes, when I was working on a team that's a monitoring team, and so some of the things were, making sure that we understood what did our people in customer support need on this dashboard to be able to diagnose their problem. We couldn't make assumptions about what we thought they needed. We needed to make sure we understood their needs, or something for what thresholds do they need for an alert.
Right.
And so making sure that we at least had those conversations with those stakeholders before we started on their story.
Yeah. So your definition of ready will depend on your context.
Mhm.
So try using visual models, maybe like the holistic testing loop,
Mhm.
just to kind of say, hey, pause. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Or maybe the testing quadrants,
Mhm.
right? To help think about what you want in that definition of ready.
Help think about those unknown unknowns up front.
Unknown unknowns, exactly, exactly. So, all right. I think that's about the time we've got for today. So let's just kind of finish off here, and hope
I wanted to make sure people have seen our Agile Testing Fellowship blog post that Janet and I did this month on asking for help, because I know for many of us that's really hard to do. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback on that one. So check it out.
All right. So here's our contact information. You can check out that agiletestingfellow.com for the blog posts. And here's our contact information so that you can email us or you can tweet. Don't always tweet about testing things. Sometimes I just tweeted about a campfire and put a most wonderful picture of a campfire.
I gotta go look for that.
Yeah, it was just, we put a big stick on. We had a fire last night. Our fire band's finally off. And so we were burning some of our small weeds, or our big weeds that we've been drying out. And it was an amazing fire. So sometimes we don't tweet about testing, it's other things, maybe even donkeys.
Yeah, I tweeted some donkey pictures from our nice donkey drive today. So
yeah, you did some amazing donkey drives.
We're so lucky.
All right. So thanks for joining us again this month, I guess it's not a week. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.